Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Gaurav Sharma and with me is VC Pramod, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India's first indigenous aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant, commissioned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Kochi in Kerala, the new naval ensign befitting the rich Indian maritime heritage also unveiled. In Afghanistan, at least 18 people killed in an explosion in Herat. Heavy fighting continues near Europe's largest nuclear power plant site at Zaporizhzhia. Russian envoy says 2 inspectors of the IAEA to stay at the power plant on a permanent basis. US slams China for human rights violation in Xinjiang and Tibet. India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan calls for strengthening cooperation in education and skilling in bilateral meetings with Indonesia and Australia. Japanese yen slides to a 24-year low against the US dollar. And in Asia Cup, Pakistan beat Hong Kong by 155 runs in a must-win match. Prime Minister Narendra Modi commissioned the first indigenous aircraft carrier, the Indian naval ship INS Vikrant, at Kochi in Kerala on Friday. During the event, the Prime Minister also unveiled the new naval ensign, doing away with the colonial past and befitting the rich Indian maritime heritage. The Prime Minister asserted that INS Vikrant is an example of government's thrust to making India's defence sector self-reliant. Speaking on the occasion, the Prime Minister said that every Indian is witnessing the sunrise of a new future. This event being held on the INS Vikrant is a tribute to the rising spirits of India on the world horizon. Mr. Modi said that Vikrant is a unique reflection of India becoming self-reliant. This is a testament to the hard work, talent, influence and commitment of India in the 21st century.
विक्रांत विशाल है, विराट है, विहंगम है। विक्रांत विशिष्ट है, विक्रांत विशेष भी है। विक्रांत केवल एक युद्धपोत नहीं है, ये 21वीं सदी के भारत के परिश्रम, प्रतिभा, प्रभाव और प्रतिबद्धता का प्रमाण है। यदि लक्ष्य दुरंत है, यात्राएं दिगंत है, समंदर और चुनौतियां अनंत है, तो भारत का उत्तर है विक्रांत।
Remarking on the 5 vows, Mr. Modi said that the first of the 5 vows that he had talked about from the Red Fort is the creation of a developed India. The Prime Minister said that to build a developed India, it is necessary to expand Make in India and the manufacturing sector of the country.
विकसित भारत के निर्माण के लिए देश के मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर का मेक इन इंडिया विस्तार करना बहुत जरूरी है। विकसित भारत के निर्माण के लिए जरूरी है हमारा एक्सपोर्ट बढ़े, दुनिया में हमारे प्रोडक्ट कॉस्ट के मामले में कॉम्पिटिटिव हो, ये सस्ते और सुगम लॉजिस्टिक्स के बिना संभव ही नहीं है। इसी सोच के साथ पिछले 8 वर्षों से देश के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर अभूतपूर्व काम हो रहा है।
Addressing the gathering in Mangaluru, the Prime Minister said that today is a red-letter day in the history of India. Be it territorial security or economic security, India is witnessing huge opportunities. Recalling the commissioning of INS Vikrant earlier, the Prime Minister exuded the pride that every Indian is experiencing.
भारत की समुद्री ताकत के लिए बहुत बड़ा दिन है। राष्ट्र की सैन्य सुरक्षा हो या फिर राष्ट्र की आर्थिक सुरक्षा, भारत आज बड़े अवसरों का साक्षी बन रहा है। कोची में भारत के पहले स्वदेशी एयरक्राफ्ट कैरियर के लोकार्पण ने हर भारतीय को गर्व से भर दिया और यहां मंगलुरु में 3,700 करोड़ रुपए से अधिक के प्रोजेक्ट का लोकार्पण शिलान्यास और भूमि पूजन हुआ है।
Highlighting the efforts that the country has made towards port-led development, Mr. Modi emphasized that it is an important mantra for development. He said that overcoming every challenge, India made a new record of merchandise export of $418 billion. Our correspondent reports that the INS Vikrant has been built with the state-of-the-art automation features and is the largest ship ever built in the maritime history of India.
It was a historic day for India as Prime Minister Narendra Modi commissioned the country's first indigenous aircraft carrier INS Vikrant at the Cochin shipyard this morning. The steel marvel is the largest ever warship built in the maritime history of the country and a symbol of its indigenous potential, resources and skills. The 43,000-ton floating city is 262 meters long and 62 meters wide. It has about 2,200 compartments designed for a crew of around 1,600. The vessel has an endurance of 7,500 nautical miles and can achieve a maximum speed of 28 knots. Its flight deck is equivalent to 2 football fields. The vessel is capable of operating 30 aircraft comprising fighter jets and an assortment of naval helicopters. The deck integration trials of the fixed-wing aircraft and the exploitation of the aviation facility complex will be carried out post-commissioning of the ship. Once it becomes operational, the country will be able to deploy an aircraft carrier each on the eastern and western coasts, thus enhancing its maritime capabilities and presence in the Indian Ocean region. This morning, when the vessel joined India's naval fleet, it took the same name, crest and pennant number of the country's first aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant, which played a vital role in the 1971 war. As they say, great ships never die, they are just reincarnated. Raj Mohan reporting for World News, All India Radio.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on INS Vikrant aircraft carrier par excellence. In conversation are Vice Admiral Satish Soni, defense expert, and Ajay Banerjee, journalist.
We are discussing the Indian aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, the first warship of this size to be made in India and commissioned in India. The warship is 45,000 tons and will carry a complement of fighter jets and helicopters at sea. Prime Minister Modi at the commissioning mentioned that it is not just a warship, it is the outcome of 21st century's India's determination to be Atmanirbhar or self-reliant. Admiral Soni, we all know the numbers, how big the ship is, what it will do. What does it mean strategically?
Firstly, it is a dream come true. It is the realization of extremely ambitious dream of our forefathers. We got the first Vikrant in 1961. It was actually a new ship which was built for the Royal Navy in 1957, and then since they did not need it, it was transferred to the Indian Navy, and since then Indian Navy has been honing its skills in this new warfare at that time, that is the air version at sea. But an imported aircraft carrier is an imported aircraft carrier. The senior leadership of the Indian Navy had been wanting to build an aircraft carrier on its own. In 2000, they got the sanction. 2005, they cut the steel. 2009, they lay the keel. 2013, the aircraft carrier Vikrant was launched. And now, today, it has been commissioned. Extremely important date. So the fact that it is 76% indigenous, most of the ecosystems of the aircraft carrier have been established, whether it is the designing of the aircraft carrier or building it in our own shipyard, or having big names like Bell and other PSUs who have provided the various components. So it's a very big achievement. We have proved to the world that we are now in the select group of 6 or 7 countries who can make aircraft carriers on their own. Now, the second aspect is that the aircraft carrier adds to the operational capability of the fleet. We have one aircraft carrier, that is INS Vikramaditya, which is in commission. Having INS Vikrant means that no matter what, we are going to have carrier-borne aviation available to us at sea, so that the fleet can be provided with air defense. And operationally, we are that much more capable. So that is the second aspect. The third aspect is, today we are in an era of partnerships. We are partnering the US, Japan, Australia and Quad. We've got France as a very important partner in the Indian Ocean. We have got trilaterals. They're smaller but important partners like Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bangladesh. And all these countries, though they are small, but they are extremely important. And they look up to India to provide them that maritime security. And we take great pride in being called the first responder or the preferred security partner for these countries. And if we add to our arsenal an aircraft carrier, they know that they can rely on us, which means that they would rely less on extra-regional powers. So I think these three aspects are the major gains that we achieve by commissioning of INS Vikrant today.
Admiral, the Prime Minister also mentioned that it's like a floating airfield. Could you explain to our listeners how is it a floating airfield when this aircraft carries out at sea, say 500 miles out of the coast or 1,000 miles away? What does it mean?
India is a peninsular country. We have a peninsula jutting out into the sea, and which we say is a great advantage to us because from the southern tip, on an airfield, you can launch an aircraft and within its radius of operational capability, it will be able to influence the maritime space below. Similarly, we have 1,000 islands, and those islands of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep Islands, we call them floating aircraft carriers, which means that you can base an aircraft or we can base a ship there and extend an operational range. But with an aircraft carrier, you can extend this range even further. That means if the aircraft carrier was to go to the south of the Indian Ocean, and from there, if you have, say, 25 jets embarked with 6 AEW helicopters embarked within an area of about 300 nautical miles around the island, you are safe because you can detect an intruder, you can intercept an intruder, and you can influence and carry out, and you can make sure that the other ships in the fleet can carry out the missions that they have been assigned to do, which means it's a floating airfield.
Admiral Soni, we already have aircraft carrier, the INS Vikramaditya, which was originally sourced from Russia in 2013, and this is the second carrier to join the force. We have operated two carriers earlier in the past also. Possibly this is the first time that the two carriers will have some kind of contemporary technology, both the carriers. I'm not talking of the engines because the engines of the Vikrant are very superior, they're the most modern. But what about the technology part on both the carriers?
For the aircraft carrier, technology of the weapon system, there are very few. There is not so much of weapon system fitted on board the aircraft carrier. Aircraft carrier's main weapon is the aircraft itself. And you have the commonality of MiG-29Ks, which can operate from both carriers. You have the Sikorsky ASW helicopters, which can operate from both carriers. You have the Tomahawk 31 AEW helicopters, which can operate from both carriers. There is a talk of acquiring a new fighter aircraft for INS Vikrant. It could be F-18 or it could be Rafale, which means that there will be a technological jump. These aircraft are superior and at par with the best that are there in the field. So therefore, with both these aircraft carriers at sea, there is compatibility, and they operate more technologically advanced aircraft. They have more technologically advanced EW systems, better machinery, better gas turbines, which means that they are able to operate at long distances without as much failures as earlier.
Admiral Soni, the aircraft carrier also means India's prowess at sea. America has around 11 aircraft carriers, China has 2 operational aircraft carriers, Japan has refitted 2 of its helicopter carriers to fly fighter jets F-35s. Korea has announced a carrier. Is it a kind of an Asian race which we are seeing to make carriers?
Well, we started our aircraft carriers, as I said, long back. In our case, we were very lucky to have inducted the first INS Vikrant in 1961, and we developed this capability to fly at sea. And we nearly lost it because in 97, we had to decommission INS Vikrant, and luckily for us, INS Virat, which was being paid off by the Royal Navy, was acquired by the Indian Navy, and that served the Indian Navy for a very long time and filled this gap, and until such time we got the INS Vikramaditya. So for the Indian Navy, I would say we are not in any race with anyone. We have been able to preserve this art is a very big achievement. With the commissioning of INS Vikrant, we are sure that this art is going to stay with us for a fairly long time. And if we have the third aircraft carrier, it would mean that we would have the capability to operate 2 carrier task forces at sea. Now, the other Asian countries, they are developing aircraft carriers for their own reasons. China thinks of itself as a world power. They want to achieve it by 2050. They have realized that if they want to be a world power, they have to be a maritime power first. In their ability to acquire that status, they need aircraft carriers so that their task forces can operate miles away from the coast, and aircraft carriers can provide them with the air defense capability. And I feel Japan is acquiring an aircraft carrier because of the expansion of the Chinese Navy and the coercive activities that it has been involved in. So they feel the need to upgrade their fleet. So each one is acquiring this capability for their own reasons. We have an additional reason. In the Indian Ocean region, I think we foresee a threat from an expanding PLA Navy, which after South China Sea would only be too keen to come to the Indian Ocean region and dominate because of the economic interdependence they have with the countries of this region and because the sea lines of communication run through the Indian Ocean region. So we can expect by all their preceding actions that they have taken that they would be deploying an aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean soon. So we better be as well prepared.
Admiral, we have come across a very good discussion with you. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan has called for strengthening cooperation in education and skilling in bilateral meetings with Indonesia and Australia. Mr. Pradhan held a bilateral meeting with his Indonesian counterpart Nadiem Anwar Makarim in Bali on Friday. They had fruitful discussions on further expanding the academic and skill development partnerships and also realizing the full potential of comprehensive strategic partnership between both the countries. Both the leaders explored opportunities for collaborations in education and skilling, especially in the areas of curriculum design, student exchange and research. Mr. Pradhan also held a bilateral meeting with Australian Minister for Early Childhood Education and Youth, Dr. Anne Ally. They had productive conversations towards deepening engagements in the field of early childhood and school education between both the countries. Mr. Pradhan said India and Australia enjoy vibrant cooperation in higher education, research and skill development.
India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal will visit San Francisco and Los Angeles in the United States from Monday to attend the first ever in-person ministerial meeting of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF. Mr. Goyal will also attend the India-US Strategic Partnership Forum conference. The IPEF was launched jointly by the United States and other partner countries of the Indo-Pacific region on the 23rd of May this year at Tokyo. India joined the IPEF and Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the launch event along with US President Joe Biden, Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio and other leaders from partner countries.
Heavy fighting continued Friday near Europe's largest nuclear power plant in eastern Ukraine, a day after experts from the UN's nuclear watchdog agency voiced concerns about structural damage to the sprawling Zaporizhzhia site. Britain's Defence Ministry said that shelling continued in the district where the Zaporizhzhia power plant sits. The team of inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency, braving gunfire and artillery blasts along their route, crossed the frontliners to reach the Zaporizhzhia plant on Thursday in a mission to help safeguard the plant against catastrophe. Russia and Ukraine traded accusations that the other side was trying to impede the work of the IAEA experts or control the message. The 14-member delegation arrived after months of negotiations to enable the experts to pass through the front lines. Zaporizhzhia plant has 6 water-cooled reactors containing uranium-235. Meanwhile, 2 inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency will stay at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant on a permanent basis, Russia's ambassador to international institutions in Vienna told the RIA Novosti news agency on Friday.
slamming China for its continued violation of human rights of minority communities in Xinjiang, Tibet and elsewhere in the country, the US has vowed to work closely with its partners and the international community to hold Beijing accountable for its abhorrent actions against its own people. Welcoming the damning of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights report on Xinjiang that was released on Wednesday, the White House Press Secretary Karen Jean-Pierre said that it deepened the grave concern of the United States regarding the ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity that China is perpetrating. During her daily news conference on Thursday, she said that the United States welcomes its important report as it describes authoritatively the abhorrent human rights treatment of the Uyghur and other minority communities by the People's Republic of China government. The report said that China's discriminatory detention of Uyghurs and other mostly Muslim ethnic groups in the western region of Xinjiang may constitute crimes against humanity. Jean-Pierre said that the Biden administration has taken concrete measures and the president has rallied allies and partners, including the G7, to ensure all global supply chains are free from the use of forced labor from Xinjiang.
Taiwan's military shot down an unidentified civilian drone off China's coastline. According to Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense, after entering Taiwan's airspace over Shiyu Island yesterday, the military first tried to warn the drone away with flares before shooting the device into the sea. Local media reported that Taiwan's military for the first time shot down an unidentified civilian drone. It comes after the government vowed to take tough measures to deal with an increase in such intrusions. Earlier this week, Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen ordered the military to take strong countermeasures against any China provocation after Beijing conducted several days of live military exercises around the island.
In Afghanistan, at least 18 people, including a prominent cleric close to the Taliban, have been killed in an explosion at a crowded mosque in the western part of the country on Friday. At least 21 people were injured. The explosion occurred during the Friday noon prayers at the Guzargah Mosque in Herat. Among the dead was Mujibur Rahman Ansari, a prominent cleric who was known across Afghanistan for his criticism of the country's Western-backed governments over the past 2 decades. Ansari was seen as someone who was close to the Taliban.
The Japanese yen has declined to its lowest level against the US dollar since August 1998, prompting the government to weigh action. The boost in the dollar stems from data suggesting the labor market of the world's biggest economy is recovering. The yen temporarily weakened to the 140 level against the greenback in Tokyo on Friday morning. While many central banks in Asia have hiked the cost of borrowing to mirror the US, Japan has not followed suit. The Bank of Japan has maintained its ultra-low interest rates to support economic recovery, and this is one of the reasons the yen has fallen in value against the US dollar and other major currencies. On Friday, Japanese Finance Minister Shunichi Suzuki said the government would take appropriate action to address the yen's decline.
Over the past 75 years since independence, India's largest public service broadcaster, All India Radio, has been the proverbial storyteller for the 1.3 billion citizens across the country. All India Radio is celebrating 75 years of freedom with a series, Azad Bharat Ki Baat Akashvani Ke Saath. It showcases the journey of India since independence in various walks of life through the storytelling of All India Radio.
Azad Bharat Ki Baat Akashvani Ke Saath, reliving the journey of India since independence over the last 75 years with All India Radio. From 15th August, the series is being broadcast on All India Radio, 100.1 FM Gold Channel, primetime news bulletins and across all its platforms. Tune in to stay updated with All India Radio.
In today's episode, we bring you the story of the Bharat Ratna awardees from 1966 to 1990.
The highest civilian award in India is the Bharat Ratna Award, which was instituted in the year 1954. It is awarded for exceptional public service and performance of the highest order in any field of human activity. This award is presented by the President of India. So far, 48 eminent personalities have been honored with the Bharat Ratna. In 1966, Lal Bahadur Shastri, who was the second Prime Minister of India, was conferred on the honor posthumously. In 1971, first woman Prime Minister of the country, Indira Gandhi, was given the award. In 1975, V.V. Giri, trade unionist and former president, was honored with the award. In 1976, the award was conferred upon K. Kamaraj, freedom fighter and former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, posthumously. In 1980, Mother Teresa, founder of the Missionaries of Charity, was honored. In 1983, Acharya Vinoba Bhave, social reformer and close associate of Mahatma Gandhi, was awarded posthumously.
When they lose contact with nature, जिन राष्ट्रों का परिचय रहा नहीं आसपास की कुदरत के साथ, वो नेशंस क्षीण होते हैं, उनका क्षय होता है, ये इसका अर्थ है। इस वास्ते खेती के साथ, निसर्ग के साथ संबंध रखना अत्यंत आवश्यक है। इस सिलसिले में वेद में एक वाक्य है। वेद के वाक्य का अर्थ यह है कि सृष्टि में होना चाहिए सौंदर्य और समाज में होना चाहिए सौजन्य।
In 1987, independence activist Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan was the first non-citizen to be given the Bharat Ratna Award. In 1988, M.G. Ramachandran, actor and former Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, was conferred upon the award posthumously. In 1990, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the father of the Indian Constitution and social reformer, was awarded posthumously. Dr. Nelson Mandela, leader of the anti-apartheid movement, and President of South Africa, was given the award in the same year.
Your Royal Highness, distinguished guests, comrades and friends, today all us do, by our presence here and by our celebrations in other parts of our country and the world, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. Our daily deeds as ordinary South Africans must produce an actual South African reality.
In tomorrow's episode, we will bring you the story of the Bharat Ratna awardees from the year 1991 to 1999. Azad Bharat Ki Baat Akashvani ke saath can be accessed on AIR News Alerts on Twitter, News on AIR official YouTube channel, News on AIR app, Facebook and Instagram handles. So tune into All India Radio News for Azad Bharat Ki Baat Akashvani ke saath.
In Asia Cup T20 cricket, Pakistan defeated Hong Kong by 155 runs at the Sharjah Cricket Stadium in Sharjah and reached the Super 4 stage on Friday. Chasing a target of 194 runs, Hong Kong were all out for 38 runs in 10.4 overs. For Pakistan, Shadab Khan scalped 4 wickets, Mohammad Nawaz took 3 and Nazim Shah claimed 2 wickets.
And before we end the bulletin, let's take a look at the headlines once again.
Added 37 points to close at 58.
India's first indigenous aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant, commissioned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Kochi in Kerala, the new naval ensign befitting the rich Indian maritime heritage, also unveiled. In Afghanistan, at least 18 people killed in an explosion in Herat. Heavy fighting continues near Europe's largest nuclear power plant site at Zaporizhzhia. Russian envoy says 2 inspectors of the IAEA to stay at the power plant on a permanent basis. US slams China for human rights violation in Xinjiang and Tibet. India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan calls for strengthening cooperation in education and skilling in bilateral meetings with Indonesia and Australia. Japanese yen slides to a 24-year low against the US dollar. And in Asia Cup, Pakistan beat Hong Kong by 155 runs in a must-win match.
And now, before we end, let's listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Guinea. Vaishnava Jana ko dene kaiye id parai jane para tuke
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.
News.